The massive alien ship drifted silently through the void between Mars and Jupiter, its sensors reaching out like invisible fingers to touch every corner of the solar system. Admiral Vorth adjusted the neural interface connecting his mind to the ship's vast database, reviewing the preliminary scans of the third planet from this system's star. The readings were disappointing but not unexpected. Earth showed all the classic signs of a Class 3 civilization. Nuclear weapons scattered across the surface like deadly toys, primitive rocket technology that barely managed to reach their own moon, radio signals that leaked into space, revealing a species still fragmented into competing nations. The thermal signatures indicated massive energy waste, suggesting they had not yet mastered efficient power generation. Most telling of all, their space presence was laughably minimal, a few small stations and outdated satellites. "Sir, the behavioral analysis is complete," reported Lieutenant Crix, her tentacles dancing across the control interface. "The species shows classic pre-contact aggression patterns. They have conducted over 14 major conflicts in the past century alone. Resource depletion is accelerating. Population growth is unsustainable. They fit the standard profile for early intervention." Vorth nodded his massive head, causing the bioluminescent patches along his neck to pulse in agreement. In his 300 years of service to the Galactic Council, he had overseen 47 peaceful annexations. This would be 48. The pattern was always the same: locate a primitive species, assess their threat level, implement standard pacification protocols, and welcome them into the galactic community as junior members. "What about their military capabilities?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Negligible," Crix replied immediately. "Their most advanced weapons are fusion-based, roughly equivalent to what we used 15,000 years ago. Their space-based defenses are non-existent. They have no energy shields, no quantum drives, no particle weapons. A single battle cruiser could pacify their entire planet within 6 rotations." The Admiral allowed himself a moment of what humans might have called amusement. These creatures were so wonderfully predictable. They followed the same developmental path as every other species: agriculture, industry, nuclear power, space exploration, then either self-destruction or galactic contact. The lucky ones, like these humans, were found before they could destroy themselves. Deep space monitoring stations throughout the system had been recording everything for months. The humans went about their daily lives completely unaware that their every transmission was being intercepted and analyzed. Their military communications were particularly easy to decode. They used encryption that the Council had cracked millennia ago. Their leaders seemed to spend most of their time arguing about resources and territories, typical behavior for a species that had not yet learned to think beyond their homeworld. "Sir, there is one anomaly," Crix said, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty. "The quantum resonance detectors are picking up unusual signatures from their moon and several asteroids. The patterns don't match any known natural phenomena." Vorth's attention focused on the data streaming across his neural interface. Strange quantum fluctuations indeed, but they were subtle, almost hidden beneath the background radiation of the system. Probability assessment. The computer estimates an 87% chance that these are previously unknown natural quantum effects. The remaining 13% suggests artificial generation, but that would require technology far beyond what this species has demonstrated. The Admiral dismissed the concern with a wave of his appendage. "Natural phenomena. Log it for the Science Division to investigate after annexation. These humans barely understand their own star system, let alone quantum mechanics advanced enough to generate such signatures." The assessment continued for several more days. Human internet traffic was monitored and translated, revealing a species obsessed with entertainment, commerce, and social interaction. Their news networks spoke of economic troubles, political disagreements, and environmental concerns. Their military forces were scattered across the globe, poorly coordinated, and equipped with technology that would have been outdated in the Council's early expansion period. Most encouraging of all, The humans seemed to have no idea they were being watched. Their space-based telescopes occasionally pointed in the direction of the monitoring fleet, but their sensors were too primitive to detect ships using proper stealth technology. They went about their business completely unaware that their fate was being decided by beings they had never met. Recommendation? Vorth asked his staff after reviewing the complete analysis. Standard pacification protocols, replied Commander Thex, the fleet's tactical officer. Deploy intimidation display to major population centers. Demand immediate surrender. When they inevitably refuse, demonstrate superior firepower by neutralizing their military installations. Accept their capitulation within 72 hours. It was the same plan that had worked 47 times before. The Council had refined the process over thousands of years, creating a system that minimized casualties while making the superior technology absolutely clear. Most species surrendered after the first demonstration. The stubborn ones occasionally required a second, but none had ever held out for a third. Timeline? The Admiral asked. The main fleet can be in position within 10 rotations. Full annexation should be complete within 30 rotations. The humans will be granted junior membership status and begin integration into the galactic community immediately. Vorth reviewed the final assessments one more time. Earth's military strength was rated at 0.3 on the Council's scale, where 1.0 represented the minimum threshold for resistance. Their technology level was classified as primitive industrial. Their space presence was essentially non-existent. Their political structure was fragmented and inefficient in every measurable way. This would be one of the easiest annexations in Council history. The humans would be shocked, overwhelmed, and ultimately grateful to be welcomed into the galactic community. Within a generation, they would wonder how they had ever survived as an isolated species. Very well, the Admiral decided. Signal the Council. Earth is classified as minimal threat. Recommend immediate annexation using standard protocols. We'll begin the approach tomorrow. As the alien fleet prepared to reveal itself to humanity, the strange quantum signatures from Earth's moon and asteroids continued to pulse in patterns that the Council's computers couldn't quite decode. But such minor anomalies were hardly worth considering when dealing with such a primitive species, after all. What could humans possibly have hidden from beings who had been crossing the galaxy for thousands of years? Dr. Emma Torres pressed her palm against the bioscanner and waited for the reinforced titanium doors to slide open. The elevator descended for what felt like forever, dropping through solid rock beneath the Colorado mountains. When it finally stopped, she stepped into a world that officially did not exist. The Titan Protocol facility stretched for miles in every direction, carved from living rock and reinforced with materials that would not be invented for another 50 years according to public scientific records. Hundreds of technicians moved between workstations that hummed with energy from fusion reactors buried even deeper underground. The air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained power. Status report, Emma said as she approached the central command console. All systems nominal, replied Dr. Richard Park, his fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed the real-time status of installations throughout the solar system. Lunar Base 7 completed its final weapons test. 6 hours ago, Mars Colony 3 has achieved full production capacity. The asteroid stations are maintaining perfect stealth profiles. Emma nodded, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. 30 years of work had led to this moment. 30 years of humanity's brightest minds working in absolute secrecy to prepare for a threat that most people still believed was science fiction. It had started with the detection of the first alien signals in 2019, not the simple radio waves that scientists had been searching for, but complex quantum transmissions that suggested technology far beyond human capabilities. The signals had been detected by a deep space monitoring array that was itself a classified project, funded by a coalition of governments that had quietly agreed to pool resources for humanity's defense. The decision to hide the truth from the public had been controversial but ultimately necessary. Panic would have accomplished nothing. Instead, the world's leaders had chosen to prepare in secret, funneling resources into projects that appeared to be routine space exploration or scientific research. How long until the aliens arrive? Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. Final approach vectors suggest they'll reveal themselves within the next 48 hours, Richard replied. All our long-range sensors confirm they're using standard intimidation tactics. They want us to see them coming. Emma walked to the main viewing screen, which showed a real-time composite image of Earth as seen from space. It looked peaceful, almost fragile. Cities glowed like scattered jewels in the darkness. Weather systems swirled across the continents in patterns that had remained unchanged for millions of years. But appearances were deceiving, hidden beneath the lunar surface. Humanity's most advanced weapons waited in launch tubes disguised as mining equipment. The moon's gravity was perfect for accelerating projectiles to incredible speeds, and the lack of atmosphere meant that energy weapons could operate at maximum efficiency. To alien sensors, the lunar installations appeared to be simple resource extraction operations. Mars was even more deceptive. The struggling colonies that dominated news reports were real enough, but they concealed manufacturing facilities that had been producing exotic materials for decades. The red planet's low gravity and minimal atmosphere made it ideal for constructing the massive ships that would soon engage alien technology. Every transport that had carried supplies to Mars had also carried components for weapon systems that officially did not exist. The asteroid belt was perhaps the most clever deception of all. Thousands of small installations disguised as research stations and mining operations actually housed the most advanced human technology ever developed. Quantum computers that could process information at the speed of light. Fusion reactors that generated more power than entire cities consumed. Manufacturing systems that could build anything from raw materials, including more of themselves. "Show me the fleet status," Emma requested. Richard's fingers moved across the controls, and the viewing screen shifted to display the positions of humanity's hidden naval forces. To anyone watching from Earth, space appeared empty except for the obvious satellites and space stations. But the screen showed the truth: hundreds of ships powered by revolutionary engines, armed with weapons that could reshape matter at the molecular level. Admiral Wong reports all squadrons are ready for immediate deployment, Richard said. Captain Foster's experimental wing has achieved full stealth capability. The aliens won't detect them until it's too late. Emma studied the tactical display, noting how perfectly positioned everything was. The alien fleet would approach expecting to find a primitive species with minimal space presence. Instead, they would discover that humanity had been preparing for this encounter for decades. The breakthrough that had made it all possible was the development of quantum processors in 2023. The technology had emerged from research into the alien signals themselves, as human scientists learned to decode and eventually replicate the quantum effects they were detecting. Once humanity could manipulate quantum fields, everything else had followed naturally. Faster-than-light communication had been the first application, allowing the secret installations throughout the solar system to coordinate their activities in real time. Then came quantum manufacturing, which could create materials with properties that defied traditional physics. Finally, the development of quantum drives had given humanity the ability to travel between planets in hours rather than months. "Have the aliens detected anything suspicious?" Emma asked. "Negative," Richard replied with satisfaction. "Our stealth systems are operating perfectly. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see, a primitive species that poses no threat to their expansion." The deception had required incredible coordination. Every piece of human technology that the aliens might observe had to appear appropriately primitive. Radio and television signals were carefully filtered to remove any hint of advanced capability. Internet traffic was monitored and adjusted to maintain the illusion of a species still struggling with basic technological challenges. Meanwhile, the real human civilization had been growing in secret. Underground cities housed millions of people who worked on projects that would reshape the galaxy. Schools that officially taught basic science were actually training the next generation of quantum engineers. Laboratories that appeared to be researching clean energy were actually developing weapons that could destroy planets. Time to contact the surface teams, Emma decided. General Rivera needs to know we're ready. The communication system activated, establishing quantum encrypted links with secret installations around the world. Within seconds, she was connected to commanders on every continent, each one responsible for maintaining the deception while preparing for the real war that was about to begin. The irony was not lost on her. The aliens had spent months studying humanity, convinced that they understood everything about human capabilities. They had observed the surface civilization and concluded that humans were weak, divided, and technologically inferior. They had no idea that the real human civilization was hidden beneath their very sensors. Waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself, Emma looked around the command center one final time, at the displays showing the true scope of human preparation. Ships that could travel faster than light, weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of nature, manufacturing systems that could build entire fleets from raw materials. All of it hidden from alien sensors by technology that the invaders couldn't even imagine, the aliens thought. They were about to conquer a helpless species. Instead, they were about to discover that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades, and that the primitive world they had observed was nothing more than an elaborate disguise concealing the most advanced military civilization the galaxy had ever produced. The alien ships appeared exactly as General Alex Rivera had predicted they would. Massive dreadnoughts materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy fields that deflected everything from radiation to debris. The lead vessel alone was larger than Manhattan, its weapon ports glowing with barely contained power. Smaller ships spread out in a classic intimidation pattern, positioning themselves over major population centers across the globe. Rivera watched. From the Pacific Command Center, a facility buried 3 miles beneath the ocean floor. The command room buzzed with controlled activity as hundreds of technicians monitored the unfolding operation. Every screen showed different aspects of the carefully orchestrated deception that was about to begin. Admiral Vorth is transmitting, reported Communications Officer Lisa Shun. Standard surrender demand exactly as our analysts predicted. The alien message played across the command center's speakers, translated by quantum computers that had been decoding alien languages for years. The voice was arrogant, dismissive, speaking to humanity as if addressing children who had misbehaved. Primitive. Inhabitants of the third planet, you have been selected for integration into the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately and your transition to junior membership will be peaceful. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have 1 rotation to comply. Rivera allowed himself a thin smile. The aliens were following their standard playbook perfectly, just as 30 years of intelligence gathering had indicated they would. They believed they were dealing with a helpless species that would either surrender immediately or put up a token resistance before inevitable defeat. Initiate Phase 1, Rivera ordered. Around the world, the false panic began. Government leaders who had been briefed on the real plan years ago now played their roles perfectly, appearing on television with expressions of shock and terror. Military commanders who secretly commanded the most advanced fleet in galactic history pretended to scramble primitive defenses. Scientists who had been developing quantum weapons for decades now appeared on news programs to explain helplessly that humanity had no defense against such advanced technology. The performance was flawless. News networks broadcast images of civilians fleeing major cities. Stock markets crashed as programmed. Internet traffic showed exactly the kind of panicked searching that would be expected from a species facing extinction. Social media exploded with messages of fear and desperation, each one carefully crafted to reinforce the illusion of human helplessness. The aliens are buying it completely, reported Intelligence Chief David Park. Their communications show. They're convinced we're experiencing genuine panic. They're already discussing occupation protocols. Rivera nodded, watching as the first phase of humanity's response began. Ancient nuclear submarines surfaced near the alien fleet, their missile tubes opening in what appeared to be a desperate last-ditch attack. The missiles launched with great fanfare, their trails visible for thousands of miles as they climbed toward the alien ships. The aliens responded exactly as expected. Energy fields expanded from their hulls, creating barriers that absorbed the nuclear explosions with contemptuous ease. The detonations lit up the sky like artificial suns, their light visible from space, but they had no effect whatsoever on the alien vessels. "Perfect," Rivera said quietly. "They think they've just seen our best effort." The truth was very different. The nuclear attack had been designed to fail spectacularly, using weapons that were actually 40 years obsolete. The real human nuclear arsenal utilized fusion-boosted antimatter warheads that could crack planets, but those weapons remained safely hidden in facilities that the aliens couldn't detect. Phase 2 began immediately. Military bases around the world erupted in apparent chaos as officers shouted orders that made no sense and soldiers ran in random directions. Fighter jets scrambled from airfields, their engines screaming with effort as they climbed toward the alien fleet. The pilots flew with skill that suggested years of training, but their weapons were deliberately primitive projectiles that bounced harmlessly off alien shields. Rivera watched the performance with professional appreciation. Every aspect of the response had been rehearsed thousands of times. The pilots were actually veterans of the secret Space Force, flying aircraft that had been specially modified to appear less advanced than they actually were. The chaos on the ground was carefully choreographed to suggest a command structure that had completely broken down under pressure. "Alien communications are showing extreme confidence," reported Lisa Shun. "They're already discussing which cities to occupy first." Admiral Vorth is recommending minimal security forces because he considers human resistance to be negligible. The deception was working exactly as planned. The aliens were seeing what they expected to see: a primitive species that had thrown everything they had at superior technology and failed completely. The nuclear missiles had been humanity's best effort, and they had been useless. The military response had been chaotic and ineffective. The civilian population was panicking exactly as predicted. "Begin Phase 3, Rivera ordered. This was the most delicate part of the operation. Around the world, government leaders began making contact with the alien fleet. Their messages were carefully crafted to sound like the desperate pleas of a defeated species. They offered unconditional surrender, begged for mercy, and provided detailed information about Earth's defenses that was completely false but perfectly convincing. The aliens received reports of military installations that didn't exist, weapons, caches that contained nothing but obsolete equipment, and government bunkers that were actually decoys filled with mannequins. Every piece of intelligence was designed to reinforce the impression that humanity was exactly as weak and disorganized as they appeared. Meanwhile, the real human civilization remained completely hidden. The quantum encrypted communication networks that connected secret installations throughout the solar system continued to operate without detection. The manufacturing facilities on Mars continued to produce weapons that could reshape matter at the molecular level. The hidden fleet remained in position, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. "The aliens are beginning their landing operations," reported Tactical Officer Brian Kim. "Transport ships are approaching major cities. They're using minimal security protocols." Rivera watched the displays showing alien forces descending toward Earth's surface. The landing craft were impressive by any conventional standard, but they were following predictable patterns that human analysts had mapped out years ago. The aliens were confident that they faced no real threat, and that confidence was about to become their greatest weakness. "All units maintain deception," Rivera ordered. "Let them land. Let them establish their positions. Let them believe they've won." The alien occupation forces deployed exactly as expected. They established command centers in major cities, confident that their superior technology made them invulnerable. They began broadcasting messages of reassurance, promising that cooperation would be rewarded and resistance would be futile. They moved with the casual arrogance of beings who had conquered dozens of worlds and expected this one to be no different. But beneath the surface, literally and figuratively, the real human response was preparing to begin. Quantum computers were calculating firing solutions for weapons that the aliens couldn't imagine. Fusion reactors were powering up systems that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And throughout the solar system, hundreds of ships that officially didn't exist were moving into position for the counterattack that would change everything. Rivera allowed himself one final look at the tactical displays showing the alien positions. They had landed exactly where human strategists had predicted they would. They were using exactly the security protocols that had been anticipated. They were following the same patterns that had worked for them countless times before. The aliens thought they had conquered Earth in a matter of hours. They believed they had encountered a primitive species that had collapsed at the first sign of superior technology. They had no idea that everything they had seen was an elaborate performance designed to lull them into exactly this kind of overconfidence. Prepare for Phase 4, Rivera ordered quietly. It's time to show them what humanity has really been doing for the past 30 years. Captain Ryan Foster felt the familiar tingle of quantum field activation as his ship's experimental drive system powered up. Around him, the bridge of the Prometheus hummed with energy that would have been impossible to generate just 10 years ago. Through the viewports, he could see Earth floating serenely in the void, its surface dotted with the lights of alien occupation forces who believed they had already won. "All systems green," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Amy Walsh. "Quantum drive is stable. Weapon systems are fully charged. Stealth field is holding at maximum efficiency." Foster nodded, his attention focused on the tactical display showing the positions of enemy vessels. The alien fleet hung in Earth's orbit like a collection of gleaming predators, their hulls radiating confidence and power. They had no idea that humanity's real fleet was about to reveal itself. "Signal from Pacific Command," reported Communications Officer Tom Rodriguez. "General Rivera confirms all ground forces are clear of target zones. We are authorized to begin the counterattack." This was the moment that 30 years of preparation had been leading toward. Foster touched the quantum communication link that connected him to every other ship in the hidden human fleet. Hundreds of vessels that had been constructed in secret, powered by technology that officially didn't exist, crewed by people who had trained for this exact scenario. "All units, this is Prometheus Actual," Foster transmitted. "Execute Order 7. Show them what we've really been building." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Throughout the solar system, human ships began dropping their stealth fields and revealing themselves to alien sensors. The vessels that appeared were unlike anything in recorded galactic history, sleek, angular craft that seemed to bend light. Around their hulls, their drive systems generated energy signatures that made alien fusion reactors look like campfires. Admiral Vorth was reviewing occupation reports when his sensor officer began screaming alerts. The peaceful solar system that had contained nothing but primitive human technology suddenly erupted with contacts that shouldn't have been possible. Hundreds of ships appeared simultaneously, their energy signatures so advanced that the alien computer systems couldn't classify them. "Impossible," Vorth said, his bioluminescent patches flashing in distress. "Where did they come from?" "Unknown, sir," replied his tactical officer, tentacles dancing frantically across control surfaces. "They're using stealth technology beyond our understanding. These ships have been here all along, but we couldn't detect them." Foster watched with satisfaction as the alien fleet began to react to the revelation. Their formations scattered as commanders tried to understand what they were facing. Ships that had been casually orbiting Earth suddenly found themselves surrounded by human vessels that appeared to be constructed from materials that defied conventional physics. "Target the flagship," Foster ordered. "Let's give them a demonstration of what human engineering can accomplish." The Prometheus's main weapon was a quantum disruptor that could manipulate matter at the subatomic level. It was a weapon that shouldn't have been possible according to galactic science. But human researchers had long ago learned to think beyond conventional limitations. The beam that lanced out from the ship's bow was invisible to normal sensors, but its effects were immediately apparent. The alien flagship's shields, which had effortlessly deflected nuclear weapons, simply ceased to exist. The quantum field that protected the massive vessel collapsed as the disruptor beam rewrote the fundamental forces holding it together. Within seconds, the most powerful ship in the alien fleet was completely defenseless. "Impossible," Admiral Vorth repeated, but his voice carried less certainty now. Their technology readings suggested they were barely capable of spaceflight. Around the solar system, other human ships were demonstrating capabilities that rewrote the aliens' understanding of physics, vessels that could accelerate to near-light speed in seconds, weapons that could target enemy ships through dimensional barriers, manufacturing systems that could repair battle damage almost instantly. The asteroid belt, which had appeared to contain nothing but primitive mining operations, suddenly revealed itself as humanity's primary naval base. Hundreds of additional ships emerged from concealed docking bays, their hulls gleaming with energy fields that made alien shields look primitive by comparison. "Sir, we're receiving communication from the lead human vessel," reported the alien communication officer. Foster's voice filled the alien command center, speaking in perfect translation that demonstrated humanity's complete understanding of galactic languages. "Admiral Vorth, this is Captain Foster of the Earth Defense Force. You have invaded our territory based on a fundamental misunderstanding of our capabilities. We recommend immediate withdrawal." The alien admiral stared at the tactical display, showing hundreds of human ships surrounding his fleet. Every conventional military doctrine suggested this was impossible. The species he had been observing for months was supposed to be primitive, divided, and technologically inferior. The readings had been confirmed by multiple independent sources. "How?" Vorth asked, broadcasting the question to the human fleet. Foster's response was calm and measured. "We've been preparing for this encounter for 30 years, Admiral. The civilization you observed on Earth's surface was designed to appear primitive. Our real technology has been developing in secret throughout the solar system. You've been watching a performance." The implications hit the alien commander like a physical blow. Everything his people had observed about humanity had been false. The nuclear weapons that had failed so spectacularly were obsolete decoys. The chaotic military response had been carefully choreographed. The panicked civilian population had been following a script. "Demonstrate our manufacturing capabilities." Foster ordered his fleet dot throughout the solar system. Human ships began a display that left the aliens stunned. Raw materials were extracted from asteroids and converted into new vessels in real time. Quantum forges that could manipulate matter at the molecular level produced weapons, ships, and defensive systems faster than the aliens could track them. Within an hour, the human fleet had doubled in size. Within 2 hours, it had tripled. The manufacturing capacity that humanity had built in secret was beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever encountered. It was technology that suggested not just military superiority, but an entirely different approach to civilization itself. "Admiral," reported the alien sensor officer, "we're detecting additional installations throughout the system. Hidden bases on the Moon, Mars, and dozens of asteroids. The energy signatures suggest they've been there for decades." The truth was finally becoming clear. Humanity hadn't been a primitive species that happened to develop advanced technology. Quickly, they had been an advanced species that had chosen to appear primitive until the perfect moment to reveal themselves. The deception had been so complete that the aliens had never questioned the contradictions in their sensor readings. "We have a proposition," Foster continued. "You came here expecting to find a weak species that would submit to your authority. Instead, you've discovered that humanity is more advanced than any civilization in your database. We suggest you reconsider your approach to first contact." Admiral Vorth looked around his command center at officers who were struggling to process what they were seeing. The tactical display showed human ships that were individually more powerful than anything in the alien fleet. The manufacturing demonstration suggested an industrial capacity that could overwhelm any opponent through sheer production volume. Most disturbing of all, the humans were demonstrating a level of strategic thinking that suggested they had been planning this encounter for decades. They had allowed the aliens to approach, land, and establish positions specifically to gather intelligence about alien capabilities. The entire invasion had been turned into a learning experience for humanity. "What are your terms?" Vorth asked, realizing that his position had shifted from conqueror to potential prisoner in a matter of hours. Foster's response carried the weight of absolute confidence. "We're prepared to discuss peaceful relations between equals, Admiral. But the age of humanity being considered a junior species is over. We're ready to take our place as a major galactic power." The alien fleet found itself surrounded by ships. That shouldn't have been possible, built by a species that had spent 30 years preparing for this exact moment. The primitive world that had appeared so helpless was revealing itself as the most advanced military civilization the galaxy had ever produced. And this was only the beginning of what humanity was prepared to show the galaxy. Admiral Kate Wang stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, humanity's most advanced vessel, as it approached the core worlds of the Galactic Council. The massive ship moved through hyperspace with casual ease, its quantum drives generating energy, signatures that had rewritten everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics. Behind her, Earth's first diplomatic fleet maintained perfect formation, each vessel a testament to human engineering that had evolved in secret for decades. The past 6 months had changed everything. The alien invasion that was supposed to have been a routine annexation had instead become the catalyst for humanity's emergence as a major galactic power. Admiral Vorth's fleet had withdrawn from Earth's system within hours of the revelation, carrying with them reports that had sent shockwaves throughout the Galactic Council. "Approaching the Nexus system," reported Navigation Officer Peter Kim. "The Council's home fleet is maintaining a respectful distance, but they're clearly nervous." Wang nodded, studying the tactical display that showed hundreds of alien vessels, arranged in what could generously be called a defensive formation. The ships were impressive by galactic standards, but human technology had advanced so far beyond conventional science that they might as well have been wooden sailing ships facing a modern navy. "Signal from the council chambers," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "They're requesting permission to begin formal negotiations." The irony wasn't lost on Wang. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council had been preparing to absorb humanity as a junior member species. Now they were requesting permission to negotiate with the most advanced civilization they had ever encountered. The balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had been completely rewritten. "Grant permission," Wang replied, "but remind them that we're here as equals, not as supplicants." The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had operated on the assumption that they represented the pinnacle of technological and social development. Species that achieved spaceflight were evaluated, classified, and either inducted as junior members or quarantined until they were ready for contact. Humanity had shattered that entire system simply by revealing that it was possible to advance far beyond what the Council considered the theoretical limits of technology. The quantum drives that powered human ships were more efficient than anything in the galactic database. The manufacturing systems that could build entire fleets from raw materials represented industrial capacity that dwarfed entire star systems. Most importantly, humanity had demonstrated strategic thinking that suggested they had been planning their emergence for decades. The false weakness that had deceived the initial contact team wasn't just clever camouflage, it was evidence of a species that understood the importance of choosing the right moment to reveal their true capabilities. "The Council is offering full membership status," reported Diplomatic Officer Robert Chung. "They're also requesting access to our manufacturing technology and quantum drive systems." Wang smiled at the transparent attempt to acquire human technology through diplomatic channels. "Inform them that we're prepared to discuss technology sharing, but only between equals. We're not interested in being absorbed into their existing power structure." The truth was that humanity had already surpassed the need for the Galactic Council's approval. The secret installations throughout the solar system were producing ships faster than the Council could count them. Mars had become a manufacturing center that could build entire fleets in days rather than years. The asteroid belt housed research facilities that were developing technology that made current human capabilities look primitive. "Admiral," reported Intelligence Officer Sarah Walsh, "we're receiving reports from throughout the galaxy. Word of our capabilities is spreading faster than the Council can control it. Dozens of species are requesting direct contact with humanity." This was exactly what Wong had hoped would happen. The Galactic Council's power had always been based on their role as the most advanced civilization in known space. With humanity's emergence, that monopoly was broken. Species that had been relegated to junior member status were suddenly realizing that there were alternatives to the Council's authority. "How are they responding?" Wong asked. "Mixed reactions," Sarah replied. "Some species are terrified. They're requesting Council protection from human expansion. Others are excited about the possibility of accessing our technology. A few are suggesting that it might be time to reconsider the entire galactic political structure." Wong nodded, understanding the implications. Humanity's emergence wasn't just changing the balance of power. It was inspiring other species to question assumptions that had gone unchallenged for millennia. The rigid hierarchy that had governed galactic civilization was beginning to crack. "Signal from Earth," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "President Martinez is requesting a status update." Wong activated the quantum communication link that connected her to Earth's government. The conversation that followed was brief but significant. Humanity's leaders were already planning the next phase of their emergence: the establishment of independent colonies beyond the solar system, the development of trade relationships with species that had been ignored by the Council, and the creation of new political structures that reflected the changed reality of galactic civilization. "The Council is requesting a private meeting," reported Diplomatic Officer Robert Chun. "They want to discuss what they're calling mutual cooperation for galactic stability." Wong recognized the language of diplomacy. The Council was trying to find a way to maintain their authority while accommodating humanity's obvious superiority. It was a delicate balance. They needed to acknowledge human capabilities without admitting that their entire system of galactic governance had become obsolete overnight. "Schedule the meeting," Wong decided, "but make it clear that we're discussing partnership, not subordination." The meeting took place aboard the Endeavour, in a conference room that showcased human technology in subtle but unmistakable ways. The walls displayed real-time images from human installations throughout the galaxy bases that had been established in the past 6 months using manufacturing techniques that could transform entire asteroids into functional facilities within days. Council representatives arrived in their most impressive diplomatic vessel, but even their flagship looked primitive compared to the human ships that escorted it. The aliens who entered the conference room carried themselves with the careful dignity of beings who were trying to maintain authority they no longer actually possessed. "Honored representatives," Wong began, choosing her words carefully, "humanity appreciates the Council's willingness to engage in direct dialogue. We believe this represents an opportunity to establish a new framework for galactic cooperation." The lead Council representative, a being called Prime Minister Zeth, responded with practiced diplomatic language. "The Council recognizes that humanity has achieved remarkable technological advancement. We are prepared to offer full membership status and significant autonomy within the existing galactic structure." Wong smiled politely. "We appreciate the offer, but humanity is no longer interested in membership in existing structures. We're proposing something entirely different, a confederation of equals where advanced species work together without the hierarchical relationships that have characterized galactic politics." The implications of this statement rippled through the alien delegation. Humanity wasn't seeking to join the existing order, they were proposing to replace it entirely. The Council's authority, built up over thousands of years, was being casually dismissed as obsolete. You must understand, Prime Minister Zeth replied carefully. The current system has maintained galactic peace for millennia. Sudden changes could destabilize entire sectors. Wong activated a holographic display that showed the current state of human expansion. In the 6 months since first contact, humanity had established colonies in 12 star systems. Each colony was equipped with manufacturing facilities that could produce fleets of ships, terraforming equipment that could transform planets within years, and research installations that were developing technology at an unprecedented pace. The galaxy is already changing, Wong said simply. Species throughout Council space are requesting direct contact with humanity. Our technology is being reverse-engineered from debris left by our ships. The old balance of power is gone, regardless of what we decide in this room. The truth of this statement was undeniable. Human ships had been observed throughout the galaxy, their quantum drives leaving energy signatures that clever species could analyze and partially duplicate. The manufacturing techniques that humanity used so casually were inspiring entire civilizations to reconsider their approach to industry and technology. What are you proposing? Asked Council Representative Thima, her tentacles betraying nervous energy. Wong leaned forward, her expression serious but not hostile. A new galactic confederation based on voluntary cooperation rather than hierarchical control. Species would maintain their independence while participating in shared scientific research, trade relationships, and mutual defense agreements. Advanced species would share technology and resources with developing civilizations, but without the paternalistic oversight that has characterized Council policy. The proposal was revolutionary in its implications. Instead of a single governing body that controlled access to technology and determined the fate of entire species, the galaxy would be organized as a network of independent civilizations working together by choice rather than necessity. And if species refuse to participate? Asked Prime Minister Zeth. Then they maintain their independence, Wong replied. Humanity has no interest in forced conversion or conquest. We believe that voluntary cooperation produces better results than imposed authority. The meeting continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Council could either adapt to the new reality or become irrelevant as other species chose to work directly with humanity. Their monopoly on advanced technology was broken, their role as galactic arbiters was obsolete, and their authority was challenged by beings who had demonstrated capabilities beyond anything in the known galaxy. 3 months later, the Galactic Confederation was officially established. The Council retained authority over species that chose to remain within their traditional structure, but dozens of civilizations opted to join the new organization. Trade relationships that had been impossible under Council restrictions flourished. Scientific research accelerated as species shared information without bureaucratic oversight. Most importantly, the rigid barriers between advanced and primitive species began to break down. Humanity's approach to technology sharing meant that civilizations could advance at their own pace without waiting for official approval from distant authorities. Wong stood on the observation deck of the Endeavour as it prepared for humanity's next great project, the launch of the first intergalactic exploration mission. The ship that would carry human explorers beyond the galaxy was larger than many space stations, powered by drive systems that could cross the void between galaxies in months rather than millennia. Signal from Earth, reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. President Martinez is requesting final authorization for the expedition. Wong smiled as she looked out at the stars that had once seemed impossibly distant. 30 years ago, humanity had detected the first alien signals and begun preparing for contact. Now they were preparing to carry human civilization beyond the galaxy itself, seeking new challenges and new opportunities among civilizations that had never heard of either Earth or the Galactic Council. Authorization granted, Wong replied. Tell them to remember what we learned. Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in displaying power, but in choosing the perfect moment to reveal it. The intergalactic explorer ship activated its quantum drives and disappeared into the void between galaxies. carrying with it the message that Earth had spent 30 years preparing to share with the universe. Humanity was no longer a species waiting to be discovered. They were explorers ready to reshape the cosmos itself.